In this video, I'm going to help you understand how to price your services. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Claudio, owner of WinRate Consulting and host of the Big Stud Podcast. If you have not subscribed to my channel, if you have not gone and checked the podcast out, you're missing out. Honestly, right now, the growth has been incredible, and I'd love to have you a part of that audience and learning and engaging and implementing some of the things I'm putting out so that you can take your business to the next level and win fast. And win often. That's what I talk about. That's what I want to do. That's what I live for. But how to understand how to price your services. There is not a standard thing. I see people talk all the time like, hey, what should I be charging for this per square foot? Or what should this be done? Or how should I be charging for this unit? And unfortunately, the reality is every business needs to price their services differently. If you use the example of a company that has trucks and offices and administrative employees and someone who doesn't, they physically can't be charging the same amount for the services because of what it costs to run the business, right? This person has very low overhead. This person has very high overhead. And so, look, there's a lot of different services. There's a lot of different variables, a lot of different things. But ultimately, there's two key factors that I believe are necessary to understand what you need to be charging for your services. One is, what is your overhead run rate per day? What I mean by that is what does it cost you to run your business on a daily basis? I mean, most companies don't work 6 or 7 days a week. I think the average month would be 22 days, right? So if you take 30 days, 1 month of expenses. So insurance, rent, leases, equipment costs, office employees, non-labor employees, utility expenses like electrical, plumbing, HVAC, whatever things you have going on inside your business, take the whole month and divide by 22, right? So just make a list. I think just make a spreadsheet, right? So these are all the bills I have. If you don't know what they are, print off your credit card statements and bank statements and go through and highlight every expense on those sheets that are not related to jobs, right? So not job related costs, just overhead costs. Divide that by 22. Again, most people only work Monday through Friday. If you're working 6 or 7 days a week, divide accordingly. But most businesses only operate 5 days a week, so divide by 22. How many working days are in a month? That'll spit out a number. There is no like, oh my God, what should it be? There is no what should it be. It's what is it? Okay, so stop trying to compare yourself to everybody else. It's impossible to do. What is it for you? So let's just say reality is you have $2,500 a day ballpark in overhead run rate. That's what it's costing you to run your business every day. Well, then if you look at specific job costs, right, and specific profit margins you want to hit. So how much money do you want to have left over at the end of the year? If you're a CEO watching this and you're not in the labor force, your salary is part of that overhead, right, divided by 22. So let's say it's 2,500. And let's say you want to hit a 20% net margin. If you don't know the difference between gross and net margin, watch a different video. That's not what this one's about. But the net margin is what's left over after everything is paid for. So if your overhead's 2,500, and let's say your labor costs for that day, plus your material costs for that day, should take all those expenses, overhead, labor, material. Now you know 20% more. That's what you need to be making in gross revenue every single day. So if you know how much production you can have in a day, how many projects you can get done, how many hours of labor you can produce, how much it costs you in material per project, you can start to calculate what do I actually need to be charging to get the outcome I want. There are plenty of more complicated scenarios, complicated formulas, more complicated ways to do this. But ultimately you say, this is my overhead for today. This is my labor expense for today. This is how much of material that's today. Add 20% of that, 20% more, gets you the margin you want. That is how much you need to create in gross revenue every day. So you can say, okay, I'm gonna do the best I can to walk through a fabricated scenario. But let's say you have 5 guys, each guy can do 2 projects a day. So 10 projects a day. If you're paying each of those guys, I'm gonna use round numbers, let's say 8-hour a day, $25 an hour, you're paying each of those guys $200 a day. So $2,000 is your labor expense for the day. $2,500 is your overhead. Let's say your material cost, let's just say, is equal to the labor, so $2,000. So that your labor, material, and overhead. So job costs, labor, material, plus overhead is $6,500. If you want a 20% margin, You take that number times 1.22, 22% markup is a 20% margin ballpark. So we'll say 6,500 times 1.22, 7,930. $7,930 is what you need to produce in gross revenue for that day. So if 10 projects a day is on average, divided by 10, you need to be charging $793 on average per project times 10 projects. With those numbers, puts you at about the 20% margin that you want to hit. So if I take 6,500 divided by 7,930, yeah, that's right at a 20% margin, give or take a percent or two. But let's say round numbers, $8,000 what you need to produce. So you need to be averaging $800 per project. Your project's going to be unique. I can't say the same thing for an electrical company that I can for a general contractor. But if you know that your run rate for overhead is $2,500 a day, your labor expense for the day is $2,000, your average material cost for the day is $2,000, that's $6,500. You want to be charging at least $8,000. You need to be generating $8,000 in revenue for that day. So if you're producing 10 projects a day on average, 5 guys, 2 projects a day, you need to be charging $800 per project on average. That will spit out approximately a 20% net margin. So that's a quick way to figure out what it should cost you per project. Again, that formula can become complex depending on what type of service you offer. But ultimately, there's 3 things you need to understand. What is your overhead run rate per day? What is your labor expense per day? What is your average material cost per day or per project? You can do per project as well. Take those 3 numbers, add them together, multiply it by 1.25, which is 125% or a 25% markup, creates a 20% margin. I've done a video on this too. Markup and margin are not the same thing. You have to mark something up 25% to have a 20% margin. People already also get this wrong. I'm gonna give you an example. So if 6,500 is your daily typical run rate, if I do 1.2, that's 7,800. If I do 1.25, sorry, someone's calling me. This is live. We don't fake this shit. This is real. That's 8,125. So that's a $325 difference. Let's say times 5 times 52. That's an $84,000 difference per year. On the numbers we're talking about, $85,000 in different profit. Think about that. That difference between marking something up by 1.2 compared to 1.25 is $85,000 based on the numbers we utilize for this example. So for most people, it's even bigger than that. So pay attention to your everything, understand your numbers, figure out the net profit you want to hit, which is profit left after everything is spent, understand the markup that's needed so you can hit the margin that you need. But on that example right there, the difference between knowing your numbers and understanding the difference between markup and margin creates an $85,000 difference on the bottom line at the end of the year. So understand your numbers. Look, this is what we do. Understanding what to charge is not a simple process, but it's also not complicated. It's just hard to understand the data because most of you don't actually track what you're supposed to be tracking. So figure out your numbers, figure out your markup, figure out your margin, then just own it. Know in this scenario, at 10 projects a day, you got to be making on average $800 in gross revenue per project. You got to figure out what your numbers are and figure that stuff. If you want help with that, reach out, man. Let's go to WinRateConsulting.com. Reach out to me on Instagram at WinRate Consulting. Let me connect you with one of the coaches on our team. Let's help get you the help you need so you can figure out your pricing so you can actually start making money and not be living paycheck to paycheck like everybody else so that you can feel like you're winning fast and winning often.